back here. Hello, everyone, to all the newcomers and all the people, all the usual, all the regulars. So, as you can see behind me, mirrored, because I don't know how to do a mirrored thing in TikTok. For now, this is going to be how it's going to be. This channel is mostly revolving around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found proof that we live in a simulation. We speak every day on many different subjects. Usually it's physics, philosophy, the implications of what I'm claiming to have found, spirituality, religion, and so on. So, welcome everybody. We're meeting here daily. How are you, Jerm, Jay, Joy? Today, we will be getting into some of the content in these hyperspaces. How are you, Wooden Bell? So we're gonna getting into the specifics of the content. People were, as I'm sure you know, it both in all kinds of altered states. People report all kinds of different experiences, from pretty colors to geometries to actual beings, and sometimes people report straight up aliens. So I wanted to both talk about it a little bit and also open the discussion. The business. Oh, the business. I think. Oh, send you an invite. Okay, you can always come on, no problem. This channel is one man's opinion. Nope, not really. This channel is around what I actually found as a method to verify that, to actually establish that there's another layer of content that we usually are not seeing. We now have over 1,000 replications, so I guess it's the opinion of 1,000 people, a little more than one person. What is not safe? Oh, the thing behind me. Yeah, I actually think you're exactly right. Or you Nan? This can go wrong at any moment. Hopefully it won't. I guess we'll find out. So specifically, friendly reminder: you are loved, you are enough, and you matter. Have a great day. Not much. Thank you, Kimi. Appreciate it. How you doing, business?
Doing well. Excited for another stimulating conversation with the Danny Goler.
Oh, damn! I feel like I'm being put on a pedestal here. Well, everybody are. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Doing well.
I'm glad to hear that.
Did a deep dive into a bunch of Dr. Andrew Gallimore's work last night.
Isn't he great?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's legit, man. Thank you, Kimmy. 1 second. I have a new puppy, and I have to pick up poop for 2 seconds. So you guys are gonna excuse me. This part of the simulation is awesome.
Oh, that's the business.
Good boy. All right, I'm back. So you want to tell, before we dive into the specifics of hyperspace? Is this like James Gates theory? Not exactly. No. In fact, this is interesting because uh, before I want to ask you the business about specifically what you looked into, but I do want to answer this question. So, James Gates is very often being quoted in the context of the simulation theory. Ironically, he's one of these people that does not believe that what he found means that we live in a simulation. He actually thinks there are what he calls deeper explanations. I mean, I'm obviously of the position that he's wrong about that, but I'm of that position because I have certain access to particular information that, at the moment at least, as far as I know, he didn't have access to, or he didn't try, or maybe never will try. But to anybody who doesn't know, James Gates essentially discovered, through researching string theory, At the core of their equations, there are particular structures that they deduct from the equations, and these structures basically pointed to very particular set of codes that are not kind of like, but equivalent to error correcting codes that we use in communication, which led a lot of people to repeat these findings to put them forth as proof that we in fact live in some kind of a simulated environment, which again, I'm obviously claiming that's the case, but I think it's fair to mention that he'll be the first person to disagree with this statement, to this idea. How are you, Ava? And the business I do, yeah, I really want to know what specifically did you look into? Did you watch his videos? Did you read any articles, any papers? The business.
It was a podcast, I believe it's called Drops.
Oh, yeah, I think you're. Wait, is that mine?
If you're
Say it again. You're kind of cutting off a little bit. Well, Taiwan bomb. You'll be surprised.
yeah, I'm uploading right now.
Okay. Well, we'll wait for your reception to get a little better. So I'll address some of the questions in the meanwhile. Creator. Okay. Hey, Eva. Again, good to see you. Taiwan bomb is saying there is no answers to these questions. You'll be surprised. There's definitely answers to these questions. In fact, the idea of the simulation background of the universe is not new, and there's every reason to think that it's a computational environment just from findings that we have from physics, without even really the need for any kind of hardcore proof. But I'm claiming that there is a way to also verify these things independently to any theoretical framework. Simulated environment to be sensed in different forms, sensations, that's a lot of energy used. I mean, I'm not so sure. How are you? In between 11 and between 11, how are you? I'm not so sure that's the case, because you would have to establish a lot of different things about the specificity of how you create conscious moments in general, and then you have to calculate how much energy it actually requires. And since we have no idea how to produce consciousness, not in a computational system or in any other system, we don't really know. We don't have that information. Why not just input those sensations without generating? Well, you realize that consciousness has to be some kind of an informational process, like even in a physical environment. I am claiming that you have no proof that would stand up in court of law. This is great. Is this how it works in Taiwan bomb? You guys verifying scientific questions in court of law? I think we found the number one issue here. Yeah, so yeah, sure, we can disagree on that. I'm claiming that I do. Do you have a better reception in the business?
Yeah, a little bit better now.
Perfect.
Yeah, but yeah, when it comes to the court of law, I think you stated it before. It's like trying to describe a color to a blind person. It's so hard to grasp without having direct experience with it.
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly right. Rebecca is saying we aren't in a simulation, dude. I wish we were. Well, I have news for you. If your wish is granted, we are in a simulation. But I think that what is being challenged here is what we mean by simulation. It is a computational environment, and what it means is that the entirety of existence itself is a computational process. So I always say it's like the matrix upside down, in which the computational space is actually the real world, and what we call the real world is just a tiny subset of the entire picture. Yeah, exactly. We should define simulation, and that's what I mean by simulation. My proof, by the way, to all the newcomers who don't know what I'm talking about, is that the experiment is very simple. If you project a diffracted laser on the surface, which simply means a pattern that is diffracted pattern means that you can have either like a band or a cross, it doesn't really matter, of a red laser, and you ingest a particular molecule that I cannot mention the name of it on a live chat, you will see code running in surfaces. And yes, I do mean literally like in the Matrix. Why is it discernible in the way that it does? I'm not sure. But at this point, we have over 1,000 replications, and it always holds water. We can sit in the room, we can talk about it, we can look at it, just like you can talk about a real. You can talk about a real object. And yeah, I definitely took the red pill. Hold on. Now the question is, how many other people are interested in taking the red pill? So essentially, I'm going about it a little bit different than the way that Morpheus and Neo went about it, and I essentially just made it public. But I guess we'll find out, and the test of time will tell us if this was a wiser move than building a spaceship and traversing through hyperspace without anybody knowing.
Question, Danny.
Sure.
Has anyone from the MAPS organization or Dr. Andrew Gallimore's team communicated with you since you've put your studies out?
So I actually met with Gallimore. I have met with him. I met him in Japan, and he knows about all the stuff that I'm talking about. I mentioned this yesterday. I don't think you were on the chat yesterday, but I think it's important to mention Gallimore, because he didn't try it yet. He's not fully on board with it. My contention is that after he tries it, he would have a different perception of it. What's interesting is that everything that he's saying about particular kinds of content in the molecule space applies to the code. Specifically, I mean, there's a certain level of sophistication and coherence, let's say, to the code that you can attribute to a lot of the stuff that he's talking about. So, for example, a lot of people are familiar with the machine elves, which, to anybody who doesn't know, they're essentially beings that a lot of people encounter in the molecule space. And at some point, Gallimore tweeted that there is no, from everything we know about neuroscience, there is no way to justify machine elves from anything that we know about neuroscience, simply because the brain does not produce content. So I spoke about it a little bit before. The way it works is the brain essentially is a guessing machine. So it guesses a lot of things, and then only the things that impinge on it from the external environment, whatever it might be, it then overlays a model, a guesswork model, that helps it maneuver through the space that the brain operates in, so three-dimensional space. So what that means is that if you have a slight departure from what you're seeing, i.e., the colors get a little bit brighter, edge detection changes maybe a little bit, either becomes more rigid or less rigid. So if you have slight departures from what you're seeing, so like slight hallucinations, that can be explained in terms of perturbing the nervous system, okay? But if you have an extremely coherent content that seems to operate by particular rules, seems to have spatial coordinates that exist on its own side, and it's extremely complex and coherent, that cannot be explained in terms of what we understand about what the brain is doing, because that will require amounts of energy that the brain will never exert to construct something completely new for no reason. So if you perturb the nervous system, it can have slight departures from what you're seeing already, but it will never reform some kind of a new structure that is way more advanced than what you're used to looking at. And this is why specifically he talks about machine elves, because they are very complex things, and people report them again and again, and the reports seem to include that rigidity. Okay, so the reason that I'm saying that I believe he will have a different impression of it after he sees it is because just saying it's code is not enough to deliver the how concrete it is. It has that realness. For example, it differs from. Are you familiar with the Alison Gray characters?
I actually have those tattooed on me, on my arm.
There you go. So you're familiar with them very well. So it does not look like that. And to anybody who doesn't know, you can just Google Alison Gray language. The reason that, for example, if I would see that in the laser, it would not be that impressive to me because they're pretty blocky. So they're
Right.
more shapes than language characters. Okay, but what we're talking about is highly specific, and also the behavior of the way the code is moving is extremely complex. But it's something that we can agree on if we both sit in the room. So because of these elements, it would be extremely difficult to explain that in terms of the brain producing content. The other thing there is that, I mean, obviously, a lot of people report other things with it, not just the code. But the code is just one of these, at the moment, at least as far as I know, the only way to replicate this concretely all the time, 100% of the time. The second you see it, you can't unsee it. It doesn't matter what you do with your attention. Your mood doesn't matter. Your set and setting don't matter. You will see the exact same code. So it's true that people sometimes see similar things on psychedelics, but it's not true that you can somehow reliably replicate the same thing over and over and over again 100% of the time. That's never been observed. Like tapping into different dimensions. Hey, Ava. Yeah. So I guess again, these terms you can essentially call it that, right? The word simulation just implies that it's what we call computational environment. But so another dimension would be some kind of a physical reality that has extra dimensions, and that's not wrong. It's just that these extra dimensions in everything that we know is fundamentally based on a computational process. And understanding what computation actually is at the core, it also makes relevant what we spoke about yesterday, where Google managed to create they basically didn't create, they observed replication in a computer software where nobody told these things to replicate. It was just like a random mesh, and there was a particular language they used. They used a few, and one of the languages allowed for this personal replication. By the way, I don't think you were here yesterday, the business, but I don't know if you heard about this, but this is crazy. This just happened in the last, I think, week or so, where Google observed this. If you Google self replication, it will be the first thing that will come up. It's fascinating. You have literally like self replicating things that appear in the software, and nobody told them to do that.
Google's AI was doing that.
It's not AI. No, you can look at. So if the best video on this subject, the most informative, would be Google self replication.
Oh, so it's biological.
No, it's not. It's in the computer. But I'll tell you who to Google. Petrov, I think his name is. He has a really great science. Yeah. So Anton Petrov. That's a great channel. If you're not subscribed to him in general, I would recommend him because he does daily videos about all kinds of things in science. He's awesome. And he did recently a video about this. It's called "Did Google Researchers Just Create a Self-Replicating Something?" So if you do Anton Petrov, I think it's one of the last videos. Highly recommended.
Okay. I've got a question. With your experiment. So,
Sure.
Each one of the times you've replicated your experiment, you've had at most 15, 20 minutes with the experience, correct?
Oh no, I can be there for hours.
Okay, so you're more in line with Gallimor's extended stay protocol.
Right. So, by the way, he only helped them to, like you said it exactly correctly. He helped them come up with a protocol, but he's not involved with the research in Imperial directly. That's Chris Timmerman is the one that runs it, I believe.
Right. The podcast I heard him speaking on last night, he's actually involved with creating some kind of institution down in the Caribbean right now.
Oh, yeah. That is true. Yeah, there's going to be
Right.
some major breakthroughs very, very soon. These things are already underway, and they've been for a while. I think that it is interesting to kind of watch the whole thing unfolding, because you're watching the people who, first of all, experiencing these things, understand that there's something to actually look at there, to the extent that enough for somebody to put money down to do a full-on research in a university, and then watch kind of like the beginning of people's understanding that there's even anything like that exists. And it's just like chasm there's like a chasm in between them. There's such a long distance. And imagine people who never done any of these substances, how difficult it would be to describe all of these things. It's almost like you said, it's like describing a color that somebody has never seen before.
Right. So with these like these symbols, like have you made like a library of them? Like a codex?
It kind of looks like no, I know. I think the best term that I can kind of slap on it would be Akashic Records.
Gotcha.
What I would imagine it to be. It literally looks like this infinite array of code that is just running everywhere, and there's so much going on in any given time, but it's coherent in its function. So like there's specific coordinates that it behaves under, and it follows these rules to the T, and it's moving very fast. There's a lot of it. It kind of extends forever, but I think the most mind-blowing thing about it is how mundane it is. So it's not like, even if you have like a psychedelic explosion in that moment, right, whatever it is that you're experiencing, where the laser is, all of that just collapses, and there's just this code. There's nothing else. There's just like imagine just a digital clock.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the thing that really gets to people. And I've now watched personally over 100 people go through this, and people email me all the time that they're doing these experiments. But at least in person, I can tell you that there's always this moment where in the beginning people only see the structures, and that it's kind of cool, but it's like it doesn't put it over the top, like it doesn't make it crazy. And then people go like, oh cool, okay, I see it, it's kind of cool. And then when they see the digits, every single time their jaw drops. They literally, if you, I've never in my life before seen an actual jaw drop, and now I've seen it like so many times. Literally, people go like, what is this?
So has any of these people tried to make like a computer generated like rendering of it yet?
It's really difficult to replicate because there's so much of it. Like I always say, only when you're going to have an ability to record directly from the cortex, you're going to be able to actually do some kind of an analysis on it. At the moment, I'm more engaged with trying to create any observable changes to the behavior of the code. So I always the next step is going to be to use some kind of very powerful magnetic field around the diode, and then see if it changes anything about the behavior of the code. And if we can have a reliable change in the behavior of the code, now you have something very substantial, because now we have like a replicable, full-on event that you can also reliably augment in a way that is predictable. So now it lends itself perfectly to an actual scientific inquiry. The problem with this study in this field is that it's all based on only hearsay of people that kind of reported, without the ability to also probe into it with some external device, because we don't really know what continuum we're looking at. All we know is that there's some kind of a crazy explosion in your brain with the substance, and you gain some kind of access to go to some kind of other place. That's all we know. We don't really understand the mechanisms by which this happens, so you don't have an external device because you don't have a theoretical framework. But this will allow you to build a theoretical framework, because now you can actually start doing experiments. If we manage to do something with the magnets or different materials, now you can play with different materials, different fields, different intensities, different wavelengths, and then you can start playing with the parameters. You can play with the different external parameters, psychological parameters, and my conviction is that you're not going to see any change to the code no matter what you do to the person. People keep offering like, well, yeah, but maybe if you change your state this way or another thing. My intuition tells me that is not the case. That's actually, the code is objective. And then if you start doing some physical things around it and it starts changing, well, now you have something very, very profound, because mainstream science cannot do something with it.
Gotcha. So what Gallimore was speaking about on the podcast he was on last night is when he starts doing more extended stay studies, let's say, to have multiple people go in at the same time. Since you're saying we don't have like a mechanical probe that can monitor it, but have two people go in at the same time. And, I've done that before. I've had 3 or 4 friends go in at the same time. So with your experiments, how many people max have you had looking at the laser at the same time so far?
Funny, I literally just read 11 in between 11's comment, and the comment is, have you seen the same exact thing someone else at the same time? It's exactly the same question.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the answer is 15.
15, okay.
15 people at the same time, yeah. And we all agree on what we see. And but also what Gallimore described, this is already being done in the Imperial College in London also. So the second round that they're doing now, they already did that. They ran a few tests with 2 people at the same time.
Gotcha.
Let me see real quick. Danny, do you see code on our body like the wall? Yes. Are we made of this code as well? Yeah. It's in every point in space. So it exists on surfaces, obviously, because it exists in everything. It's just that the surface allows you to bounce light off it, so you get the content back into your eyes and you can actually see it. If you could somehow bounce the light off of the air, you would also see it everywhere in the air. And you're also made out of it. But yeah, that was a natural question. Are we also made out of it? And yes, we are. Like, everything's made out of it, basically. That's why I call it the code of reality. Is it really ultimately the code it codes for all of reality? Of course, I don't know, right? But the reason I call it that is because literally it's in every point in space, and it seems to be what makes everything, so far at least. Sorry, Danny, I came in late. Have you described what made you decide to look into the laser? Thank you for the question, Lindsay. No, not in this context, but like I said, you can, because I go it's in some depth about this stuff in my videos. If you look for the original video about this on my YouTube channel, or one of the videos that are pinned on my TikTok channel, you'll know some of it. And then, well, actually, I think in TikTok I cut that part out because I needed it to be shorter. So if you go to YouTube, you'll find my original simulation video, and there I'm talking a little bit more in depth as to what caused me to think about that. But very soon there's going to be a documentary that we're working on that's going to be describing all of it in great detail. In fact, we one of the things we're doing for the documentary is where we went to square one way before the laser. So we went like 5 years before the laser, because I had a bunch of videos that I was recording myself doing these experiments with myself without any laser. I had no idea that something like a laser would work. What started originally is that I started having these hyper realistic experiences. So the molecule is already super realistic, but I started having like another level realistic. Like, we're talking about, like, it would just come into my room and it was just like people, like, straight up. So at that point I said, okay, there is no way that this is just mind made. Like, there's no way this is a hallucination. This is way too real. Okay. And then I started doing these experiments, and I recorded all of them. And honestly, to be quite honest with you, I don't know how interesting they are, because most of it is just basically me standing there. Wait, hold on. Most of these experiments are essentially just me standing there, because it's recorded, right? And I'm just smoking some, and then I'm just standing there doing something with my hands, or like looking around. I mean, it's not interesting. It was interesting to me, but it's not interesting to watch. But we took a lot of this footage, and I had to go back and analyze every single decision I made as to how I really arrived at this idea, because very often it's kind of hard to, it's easy to forget what were the actual moves. But we did a lot of work to dig deep and, go through all the steps. So all of this is going to be in the documentary when it's going to come out. Trump is replication. Wait, what? Trump is replication that cannot be injured by weapons. Taiwan Bomb is it definitely the handle is perfect. Thank you, Taiwan Bomb. It's like, I bet you this is a comment farm from Taiwan. This is just dropping
Yeah,
bombs.
the code for Trump changed in that 1 millimeter for sure.
This is wild. That one was wild. The only other, wait, who was the, maybe you know, there was another, I don't remember if it was a president or somebody. There was something about either like the Bible or something. This is a true story. I just don't remember who it was. I gotta look it up. Like somebody in an assassination, and they were saved because they had a Bible in the pocket, and literally the like it got lodged in the Bible like sideways. So it saved. It was something nuts. Like I don't remember what it was though. Anton rocks. Are there more layers of code than just one? Yeah, it goes into infinity basically. Like when you look through the laser, like you're looking like through a window, and it just goes on forever inwards. It's like an infinite field. My financial problems seem to be self-replicating. If you could only replicate the dollars, that would be that would be a better situation. Wait, let me see here. Oh, there's a bunch of comments. By the way, where are you from? The business.
I'm in Tennessee.
Oh, cool. Oh, I love Tennessee, man. One of my favorite places actually, right after where I live in Pasadena, is Franklin. Franklin is one of my favorite places by far. Are you far from there?
Oh yeah, it's about 15 minutes from me.
Dude, it's such a beautiful place. Wow. It really feels kind of like one of the last safe havens. I always say it's like it literally is the American dream. It's just like it's so beautiful with all these rolling hills and beautiful houses and just unbelievable.
Yeah, I've traveled all over the world, and I love always arriving back in Tennessee.
Yep, I don't blame you, man. I have good friends who live there, and we visit at least once a year. And whew, every time I come, it's just like a great pause for my soul. It's so beautiful.
Well, yeah, next time, let me know. I'm around.
Oh, absolutely. Hit me up, man. And then, are there more layers of the code? Okay. Are you familiar with the geometric lattice of creation? Not sure, but if you want to tell me about it, is the code self-correcting? I don't know, because I don't know if it's making mistakes. Can you narrow down
the geometric lattice? That's kind of what's holding the code, in my opinion.
So it seems the code seems to be making it. So I very interestingly, it makes a structure. I guess you can call it a lattice because the lattice would be stable, but it's actually moving.
Right.
So it's made out of buckyballs, basically. You know what buckyballs are?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, it makes this structure. And actually, I'll show you some like crazy. We're putting into the documentary, I think, because we got to make decisions about how wacky we allow ourselves to go, because we do want to the whole thing to be taken seriously. So, but I think I will put this part because it's actually kind of wild. If you email me, again, it's lasersimulationx@gmail.com. I'll send you the sequence of what happened with these buckyballs and like things that appeared for me. It was wild. Like it was just like when I saw that, I was with my with my fiance, and we both looked at it. We were like, "What?" It's like I'll email it to you if you shoot me an email. I'll email it. It's kind of crazy. Someone tells this guy about Occam's razor. Thank you, Taiwan Bomb. If you can change it, you can prove it. Yep. By sensing brainwaves on someone seeing is without knowing when you manipulate it. Exactly. Well, you already have cases in which I definitely ran experiments in which I told people nothing and they saw it. I also ran an experiment in which I told people purposefully something else and they told me, well, I didn't see what you told me to see, but I actually saw these like Japanese looking things. So no matter what you do, people see the same thing. Voice. How are you doing, Voice for Reason? Let's see. How did the world operate before computers were invented? Smart guy. Well, actually, we didn't invent computers. We discovered that computation is possible. Computation is actually a universal law. It's one of the laws of physics, in fact. That's what it's not very often that it's expressed this way, but it absolutely is the case. So what Turing discovered with the universality of computation is that computation is a universal regularity that you can do. You can run a computation with the waves in the ocean. I don't know if you know this. It's just going to take forever. Computation is just a thing you can do in the world, and it's not based. I mean, obviously, it's based on what we call the physical laws, but it doesn't. The functionality of it does not arise from. It is not dictated by any of a combination of the laws of physics. In other words, it is a law of physics. So we discovered it. We did not. We did not invent it. What's your thoughts on interdimensional entities? They're real. Thanks, because I find this so compelling. Thank you. Don't listen to this. This is great. I wonder what they actually gain from this. Like, I am convinced that this is from like a comment farm, right? Do you know what the deal there is? Like, what do they actually gain from the instigation? Just like more, because they get advertisement from that somehow? Like, what is the deal? Like they instigate a bunch of like arguments online, right? And they do it like from these comment farms. I never understand what they're gaining from it. I guess it's maybe a form of a weapon against the country or something. Taiwan bomb, who are you? It's from a comment farm, 100%. Can't wait to see the documentary. Yeah, I'm excited about it too. This guy is an ego trip. Psychedelic digits. Never taken a molecule if you think. Oh no, okay, I see what it is. So this is what happens basically. Now I see. It derails the conversation essentially.
For sure.
Roosevelt. Interesting. You mentioned the other day that some people can see it without taking the molecule. Two women that told me that they could see it. At least two women that I have no reason to doubt. Theodore Roosevelt. What about Theodore Roosevelt? Or are you talking about what happened in 47? Was it? Are you talking about the event with the aliens, or are you talking Theodore Roosevelt for some other reason? What's your thoughts on manifestation? I thought it was bullshit until I started realizing that, like, now it actually makes sense to me, because if the whole thing is a software, actually now there's some reason to believe that it's actually possible to manifest things, because there's something about your emotional imprint that moves some dials in the code, and then it makes certain events more likely to happen than others. It has a straightforward explanation now for me. So I definitely believe in that. I've also observed it in action, so that obviously brought my belief in it even to a higher level. Where's the best place to get a 101 of what you think is going on? So some of the stuff is on codeofreality.com. Again, it's codeofreality.com. I'll be honest, I haven't refreshed the content on the website in a while. So you have the protocol there, all the stuff that you need. The best outline so far is in my second video. I'll tell you what it's called on YouTube, in which I kind of I take somewhat of a deeper dive into what I think is going on. But again, I will fully admit that this is still kind of like a collection of convictions that I have from everything that I'm observing. So I think there's something to it, but I can't say that, with any amount like, I can't tell you that's 100% what's going on, obviously. So if you look on my YouTube channel, which is Dango Thoughts, there's a video called The Name of the Molecule, which I'm not going to say, and then Laser Experiment, The Name of the Molecule, Laser Experiment Reveals Visible Code. That's the first part of the title. The Name of the Molecule, Laser Experiment Reveals Visible Code. Okay, that's the name of it. And in there, I think it's about, I did add chapters in this one. And there's one, I'll tell you which chapter, hold on. In which I'm kind of taking a little bit of a deeper dive of what I think is happening. It is, okay, so it is at 16 minutes and 30 seconds. And the chapter called Why Would the Civilization Simulate Our Space? So there you have it. I wish they would allow for like hyperlinks on TikTok. It's just not possible, huh? There we go. Franklin, Tennessee is just a simulation. It definitely looks like that. It doesn't look real. It shouldn't be real because it's too perfect. It's like
valid comment from Taiwan Bomb.
it's like it's. I always say it's basically it's kind of like you know the perfect like really the perfect America just without the racism. It's like perfect. It's like it's truly like everything you ever want without all the nonsense.
It's the last battle.
I'm telling you, man, I might move there one day. I'm not even kidding. Does the code run along pathways while twisting? Didn't seem to like the matrix trying again on what? Wait, what? Okay, does the code run along pathways while twisting? Pathway. You mean like in the matrix? No, not quite. It rotates around these buckyballs. Then there's these giant columns that it makes, and they rotate. And also, it switches in each digit comes in and out of view as if it's on some kind of a dial on its own, kind of like going like changing like that. And then the second part I didn't understand. Didn't seem like the Matrix. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, you're saying that you saw it, but it doesn't look that bad. No, it does not look. At least the movement is not like in the Matrix. Like, so Lindsay said, "Tap, tap, tap." Everyone in LOL has a documentary to make. I appreciate it. Well, I mean, first of all, yes. Anybody whose fingers are not hurting, it would be great if you tap a little bit just so we get more views. But also, I will release an official trailer that we already made, and then I'll release it on my channels, and people will be able to share and all that stuff. That would be great. I hallucinate streams of alien-looking sentences of changing symbols several. Every time I'm 2 to 3 days awake. Yes. So first of all, absolutely amplified. Also, welcome to the chat. I once, you seem to be new to the chat, but if you're not, you would know that I'm reporting to experience something I call the console, which is like a computer console that comes up for me every time I'm on the molecule. And one time I was doing production. I didn't sleep for like 2 days. And then I came back home and I took a shower and I saw the console appearing. So you're exactly right. You should be able to see a lot of this content when you're really, really tired. Now, what it tells me is that what essentially the molecule does, it essentially relaxes the machinery that pins us down in this space, and it allows for a broader perception of what's out there. And when you get tired, the brain goes through a similar transformation because it gets too tired to essentially pin reality down. So the larger reality starts drifting in. So you're exactly right there. So interesting. How can we manipulate it to our advantage? I don't know yet. I have no idea. I don't even know if we can, but I know it's there and I know it's real. Can the woman only see it with the laser? Yes, as far as I know, yes. I'm assuming you, Chorizo, I'm assuming you're talking about the women that saw it without the molecule, right? This guy makes fiction sound non-fiction. Exactly. Because it is not fiction. What emotions affect the code? So far, no emotions that I've ever seen actually affecting the code. Code of non-reality, more like. What is your YouTube? My YouTube channel is Dan Go Thoughts. 3 words. Dan Go Thoughts. Does this guy know secret molecule? Thank you. I don't allow hyperlinks. They don't allow hyperlinks because they don't want you to leave the app. I know. Also, like I've seen the other day, that they basically take like 75% of whatever creators make. That is so crazy. That is so nuts. Do you think demons are real? Short answer, yes. Longer answer, essentially they are so first of all, there's the 2 facets, right? The light and the dark. And these things are definitely real. And but I think that obviously there's also a role for each one of them to play. I think what makes them sometimes scary for us is the fact that these are the facets of our own psyche that we're trying to push away. So we essentially don't want to admit that these parts we also have them. and then it becomes this thing that is like against us. And this is obviously, this kind of vision is based very much on Carl Jung's work, and the whole idea of the shadow, the fact that if you don't admit that you have this thing that he called irreducible rascality that is essentially in all of us, they start growing and clumping because they're just trying to express themselves just like everything else. And then because we have all kinds of beliefs, we start pushing them away, and then they become like the kid that everybody ignores in class, and then they get angry, and they get angrier, and then they start lashing out, and they create pains in your body, they try to hurt you, all that stuff, right? But if you accept them, then they are actually an incredibly creative force. So in that sense, the longer answer is, I think that the expression of what demons are outside of ourselves, ironically, is because we decided to pretend like a whole half of reality doesn't exist. Is the same. Whoop.
Yeah, they're definitely there to help us evolve, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And
without that challenge, how everything would be all hunky dory with no challenges.
Yeah, I do think that there's this kind of like it kind of keeps the balance, right? The yin and the yang, and ultimately, hold on, let me turn on the light. Ultimately, if you think about it, so for example, people say a lot of creativity comes in really tough moments, right? Now, I happen to think that you can also create from all the positive stuff. You can create from love. You can create from connection. But at the same time, it's clear that when things get tough and you have to overcome things, then there's a deep sense of meaning to that process. And that, I guess you can call it grind, or that sense of meaning gives rise to new kinds of creative thoughts and things that would be very difficult to bring into reality without it. So in that sense, it always plays some kind of a role. Yes, but tapping that doesn't cost a penny. Let's see. Encourage more viewers to share. Sure. I mean, again, at this point, sometimes I know. Again, I always said like I should encourage people more. It kind of feels to me like every once in a while it's a good reminder, but doing it all the time, even though again I'm aware that I should, kind of feels to me like forcing it. And to some extent, I do believe in the way of the Tao. So eventually, as long as I show up daily and I try to do my best to give the most value, eventually I won't have to worry about asking anybody to do anything. It would just happen. By the way, Wooden Bell, I don't know why you tracked the message. I said hi back to you on YouTube. How are you, Kirsten? Just knowing and seeing there's space within spaces is mind-blowing. Difficult to wrap your hand around. Yeah, I believe they are all playing roles to help us grow. I agree. How can a molecule be secret? Exactly.
I don't believe it's a secret. I mean, the ancient tribes around the world have been using it just in a more rudimentary way, with plant medicines and stuff like that. And now we're advancing to the more technological, scientific aspect of it. So I don't think it's a secret. It's just, if you just find out about it now, that's you finding out about it. But it's been pretty well known for thousands of years.
I agree with that. Also, Lindsay, you're on. You want to do the PR? By all means, please. I will definitely need all the help possible. And yeah, I agree with you. There's a line that I say in the movie. I say, I realize that nature doesn't keep secrets. It's just a matter of, do we understand? And I think that's exactly what's going on. So it's just the second that our minds are evolved enough to start understanding it, then all of a sudden we see these structures, we understand them. And what I think is happening is that the beings that are on a higher level than us, they can see us. When they see a civilization like our own starts to understand, they would have protocols to help us understand in a healthier way so we don't freak out. Because imagine all of a sudden discovering that the universe is teeming with life. It's just we don't know how to see it yet. So when you start seeing it, constantly, probably civilizations go through this all the time, and it probably a very similar process for most of them, which is that only a few of them start seeing it at first, and then everybody thinks they're crazy, and then eventually more and more and more of the civilizations becoming aware of it, and then when a bigger chunk of the civilizations becoming aware of it, now you have the need to formulate some kind of a cultural narrative that makes sense of it, because otherwise anything that we perceive culturally, we have some kind of a conversation around it, which creates language and words associated with these things, which makes it more visible for more people. So I think that what happens is that when these civilizations see people like civilizations like us becoming aware, they essentially help us by allowing for certain things to happen in a certain way, by helping guide our inner space to be, I guess, of a healthier flavor. So I guess the whole idea of like healing, awakening, be like cleaner from all the kinks and all the craziness that we have accumulated over the history of the human across human civilization, across our history. How can a molecule be? Do you believe in universal one? Do you mean God? Ultimately, I think either you believe that there's nothing and there's just the universe, or you believe in God, or you believe in something in between. I think it's undeniable either way that ultimately you have to admit that obviously whatever reality is in total, it is a one, like it's a one thing that somehow operates, right? It does. Is there an awareness that stretches from alpha to omega? Is there awareness that encompasses the entirety of existence? I don't know. I think that's the real question. I do agree, not a secret, but has been still in block to some extent. I think the only thing is blocking it is people's willingness. I don't think there's a conspiracy to try and stop people from knowing. Now, it's true that there's probably a lot of conspiracies stopping from people from knowing all kinds of things. But as far as I can tell from the space, nobody knows. Like, there's no government in the world that knows. There's no organization in the world that knows. Nobody knows. People suspect, and they have all kinds of. It might even be the case that the government. I'm even going to allow that maybe the government is working with like aliens and that whole thing. But we're talking about something much larger than that. Like, it's way above that pay grade. Because we're talking about creators. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's wild to think that even like advanced alien like civilizations partake in using the molecule as well, you know?
Mm-hmm. I have a friend who had this really interesting vision. He was on the molecule and he popped into this alien's spaceship from the bottom, and then he saw him. I think he said, I think it was a him. And then he was just staring like, and he couldn't stop focusing. He was just like really focused. And then he stayed there for a little while, and then he realized, oh, he's flying this thing with his attention. And then the alien noticed him, and he put like a small percentage of his attention on him, and he goes like, "Whoa, who are you?" And then he had like a very interesting interaction with him. But the relevant part of the story to what I'm talking about now, which is that he realized that this alien is just like us. They just live much longer. They figured out a way to live physically longer. And he basically communicated to him that in order to be able to evolve your mind to a level where you can actually focus enough to make physical things happen, you have to live physically for at least 500 years. So like they go to school, and their school takes about 600 years to complete, just the classes to take of how to do that. But any being that lives under this amount of time physically, they cannot get there because the mind takes that long to evolve to be able to do that. So, and then he's like, oh, I'm still learning, but like this is how we do this. But what he realized, the interesting thought there was that alien still belongs to the same family of beings like us. They're still physical, but there are beings that are beyond that. Like, they are different. They are like in dimensions that are not material. And that's actually, when he told me that, that was like a real mind fuck for me.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. It's almost like what's said in the Bible, how when God limited man's years to 120. It's like, if you want to say God is the devil, there's so many theories about if God was an alien, it's not the true universal consciousness, but it's like if there was a power structure trying to keep us from evolving, of course they would limit man's years to 120, because you can't even get close to the point of grasping that type of technology at that point.
Yep. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. And in fact, I do believe that in our lifetime we will break this boundary. I do believe that. And there's also, I think, who was it? I think it was the ascetics, or forget what they were called, but they basically believe that the biblical God is essentially the other guy, and the snake was a messenger from the real creator. And the snake was essentially trying to say, if you eat from the apple of the knowledge of good and evil, you will become like us. So essentially, it was a message to try and get you out of that situation. Essentially, now obviously this is like, who knows, right? But that's one interesting.
Studied like the Anunnaki, like the stories of Enlil and Enki and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So a good way for me to remember like which guy is which is Enlil. Lil tries to keep us little, and Enki tries to give us the key. So if you plug those two names into the Bible, you put Enki in as the serpent and Enlil as the God trying to rule over us, it kind of parallels that story does, to where it's like one trying to help us evolve and one trying to keep us subservient.
I see. Interesting. Yeah. See, for me, when I'm like on a functional level, my day to day, because now I'm allowing some of this more folkloric ideas to guide me a little bit more, because I understand that whatever the simulation is, ultimately, it always has these key concepts that are floating around that are actually like archetypes, like they're truths. And then these truths are expressed culturally. Hold on. These truths are expressed culturally in different ways, and every culture will tell a different story about it, but the truths are real. So there is some kind of a structure that cares about ethics in the universe, right? It's just that to explain to people exactly what it is, and imagine trying to explain aliens to people 3,000 years ago, right? It's like, even the idea of like electricity technology, like, so it's much easier to say there's magic in the sky, it wants you to behave this way, okay? And because I know that there's some truth to these things, I'm much more careful with how I comport myself in conversations about these subjects, because I understand that actually it's no longer just mental entertainment. There's something there that if people land on one side of its understanding or the other, actually matters ultimately. So you got to be careful there. The other thing that I understood is that, for me at least, as fascinating as a lot of these versions are, I'm trying to always stay focused on what I believe can help me maybe make better decisions in life, that I guess more ethical, whatever you want to call it, right? Without attaching myself to specifics, like, because what you just described, for example, is just one version of like a billion different options, and all of them would make equal sense, right? And I think that that's why staying loyal to what actually works in your life, like, what is the trail you leave behind? If whatever it is that you believe, whatever it is that you do in life, if you leave the room and people feel good, great. If you leave the room and people feel awkward or off, maybe something needs to change. And I think that's really my only indicator that I have some kind of a set of ideas that helps me to produce more value than harm. Let's see one. How can our brain handle the new realities? Seeing the stuff is so much for most minds. First of all, Biggie Deluxe, that is absolutely true. I mean, obviously, it's a lot to handle. It's not for everybody. But the other thing is, I can tell you from experience that eventually your brain builds world models that starts making sense of it. So it's no longer this mesh of craziness. Given your discovery, do you have any theories about what dark matter and dark energy are? Yes, I do. I actually think that what we see, the code, is contriving either all or most of dark matter. That's my hypothesis. I cannot back it up. I'm going to be running certain particular kinds of experiments that might help us discern if there's any validity to this claim. Um, dark energy is very different, at least from what we understand about its functionality. It seems to just be the central functionality of what they call virtual particles that always pop in and out of existence at the core of space-time itself. Now, we don't know for sure that's the case. I did hear a few models recently about dark matter and the dark energy that seems to eliminate the need for it. I haven't watched the full conversation yet, but I think it's the last episode on the TOE podcast, TOE, Theories of Everything podcast, which once again, highly recommended if you're not subscribed. Great channel. He brings like the biggest experts in their fields, and they usually talk a little bit more like a technical language. But Kurt Jaimungal, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. He's the guy that is running the podcast. He's really good at helping people kind of discern what's going on and what is being said. And one of the latest experts that he brought up, he talked about one of these theories that eliminate the need for dark matter. I'm actually excited to watch that one. So, oh, by the way, on that note, let's see how much it actually. I'm gonna release either today or tomorrow my conversation with Lev Levitin. He was a pretty known name in physics and computational science in the 70s and the 80s. I mean, till today, but his most seminal work was done in the 70s and 80s. And that was a fun conversation. We got into some fun subjects, including the meaning of life and all that stuff. So there's definitely some pop cultural stuff in there that I think will interest a lot of people. This conversation is going to be available today or tomorrow on YouTube, on Then Go Thoughts. And I'm going to release some clips before I go for my Vipassana retreat, probably this week. Giving you this, okay, let me see. How can we prepare our minds for seeing new realities or understanding without have psychosis? That is a great question. Also, Aaron, how are you, brother? I'm so happy you're here. Aaron, by the way, is the director of the movie, and he is truly an incredible creative mind. That's a great question. How do we prepare for our minds seeing new realities or understanding without have psychosis? That's essentially what. Sorry, go ahead.
Doesn't Terrence McKenna kind of speak to that? Like when he's meeting the entities, they're always saying to him, "All right, don't give in to this amazement." You're always like kind of being comforted, like, "All right, this is the craziest stuff you've ever seen in your life, but don't go crazy. It's all right. It's all good. But here's the most wild thing you've ever experienced."
Yep. The don't give in to astonishment is a common thing. I always thought one of the first moments that I've had, I actually think I have it in one of the videos that I mentioned where I'm recording myself originally talking to these aliens. And there was one video where I do my weird thing where I just kind of like do this, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden I burst out laughing. And what happened to me there, I was like, it's exactly why I understood what you just said, because this is a common thing. Joe Rogan was also talking about it, where they tell you don't give in to astonishment. And it sounds so profound, right? It sounds so like they go like, don't give in to astonishment, that kind of thing. And then when I realized they're real and I straight up like experienced them, I was like, oh my God. And I started laughing so hard. I was like, we just fly into their space all the time. And all of us, we just go like, and they're just like, dude, relax. Don't give in to astonishment. Just chill. Whoa, right here. Look right here.
Here, check out this 6-dimensional geometric gift I just spun out of thin air for you.
Yeah.
Chill out.
Look at this 8-dimensional sink I just installed. It does all kinds of things. Like, it's so funny. Loving the topic of this live stream. Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much, Leslo Codes. Wait, Leslo Codes. It's really funny what my brain sometimes produces because of my dyslexia. It's hilarious. Do you think we could be in school now to evolve our science consciousness? Yes, absolutely. 100%. Taiwan bomb is hilarious. Is like ironically just making the chat better somehow. Begin needs to be to do school for only 400. Wait, what? Oh, okay. Oh, I sent an invite. Getting closer. Have you read the Emerald Tablets? No, I have not. How many teachers do you need for in 600 years in school? Probably 5. I would guess 5. That would be a good guess. Maybe we can't go past the code because there is a creator and won't see him till our physical body. Maybe. But I think then you wouldn't be able to see the code. The fact that you see the code tells me that it's there for you to find it, because the creator doesn't make any mistakes. John Rich on YouTube is saying, is it true that when you shine green laser, you see more than red? Yeah, you see more content than the red. You also see like circles. And also, how are you, 84, Stephanie? And how are you? Yeah, it is true, John, to your question. Hasn't the creator of the simulation directed interfered with the sim by communication this information to you, such proving we're in the sim? So it wasn't communicated to me. How are you, Shay? And Leslie codes, it wasn't communicated to me. I deducted it. And then it's almost like there's a lot of items on the table. Whatever you can figure out what to do with is yours. You can use it. And that achieves many things. One of them is that you don't freak out too much because you figured it out, or you managed to think of it. So now you kind of have some understanding of what can be done. And the other thing is just literally like any intelligence test. I always give this example where if you put, if there's a screen with computer code on it, you have always the 3 layers, right? You have the software engineer, which will sit in front of the computer and go like, oh, this is C++, this is Java, this is Python. Let me show you what I can do, okay? And they understand everything and they know what can be done. They have a deep understanding of what is happening, right? And then there's a layperson that will sit in front of the screen and will go like, okay, I know it's code because I'm familiar with the concept, but I have no idea what to do, okay? And then there's a monkey, okay, that will sit and won't even know that there's any importance to what's on the screen. It will just be, oh, shiny. I don't know, okay? So we're transforming from being monkeys to being the layperson. That's essentially where we are. And we're like, oh, we understand there's something is happening. We don't quite know what, and we don't quite know what to do with it yet, but we start to understand that something is happening. I think that's the best way to paint a picture there. John Rich is saying red, 436 terahertz, orange. Yeah. In like frequencies. Actually, you know what? I actually don't know much about the frequencies. Can tell you about the wavelength in nanometers. I didn't know that the frequencies. Well, I guess the frequency is associated with the wavelength, but I never actually looked into that. That would be interesting. Hold on, let me do this actually. So they're going crazy over there. Let's see. Thank you for that comment. Has anyone been able to illustrate the image of the code drawing we can better understand? Yes, few people. And if you email me to lasersimulationx@gmail.com, I will email you an image of that. No problem. There you go. Biden versus Trump, definitive proof of simulation. You know what? I always said that. When Trump got elected back in the day, I was like, okay, if this doesn't tell you we're in a simulation, I don't know what will. And this is not to say anything good or bad about Trump. It's just that he is such a wacky character. Either you love him or you hate him. He's a wacky person. The fact that that person is the president of the United States of America, that should tell you that we live in a simulation 100%. And now that we're choosing between these two guys, dude, that's definitely we're in a simulation there. And wait, what was that? There was a comment that I wanted to go back to, and I forgot what it was. Let's see. Oh, that was the one. How can we prepare our minds, seeing the new reality? So that was a great question, Biggie Deluxe. It's actually, the way that I see it is that's what my work is mostly revolving around now. Aside from doing my experiments and stuff, is figuring out how to communicate this stuff in a way that is coherent, not traumatizing, and also that helps people cope with it in a way that is actually beneficial, because understanding that there's a larger space can be very, on the one hand, very exciting. On the other hand, it can be a little scary. So kind of finding that middle ground, you got it, Stephanie. And finding that middle ground, I think, is very important. How specifically we do that, only time will tell. Hello, Brittany. And we'll have to be able to kind of come to this together. I think the conversation is dynamic and includes more than one individual. Eventually, we'll get to some kind of a place that helps us, make sense of it in a way that both culturally, psychologically, and technologically will be folded into what our perception of reality is. Everybody, give me 1 second. I'm gonna go take a leak real quick.
Chillaxed. Yeah, Hillary's ready, isn't she? Since she got snuffed back in 2016.
And we're back. How are you, Brittany?
How's that 8th dimensional sink you just installed?
That was incredible. Wait, by the way, wait, Brittany, did we meet? I feel like this name is super familiar. It's now Hillary, apparently. Really? Wait, is that real? Is Hillary now a candidate?
I heard that they're about to replace Biden. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was obvious. Like they had to do that after the debate. But like Hillary, wow. Well, I guess it makes sense because who else, right? Like who else is like that already went through the ringer?
They've been trying to convince Michelle to run, but she said she has no drive at all to be a politician whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't blame her. Also, I just realized how hilarious it would be if somebody just popped into the chat and it says simulation theory, and then we're talking about Michelle Obama. This is just politics. Everything is politics. It's like, do you know who Destiny is? What's the YouTuber, the one that argues with everyone?
Oh yeah, I've been seeing him lately.
Dude, he's hilarious. It's like, wow. It's so how much energy he has to argue with people. It's amazing. Same people. It's same people over and over. I know. I think we're ready for something new. I also tell again, one of my predictions, and it's a lame one, I'll be honest, because I'm just giving you a year. So it's like 50-50, something happens, right? But I really I have not just an intuition, but also some reasons to believe, and getting into these reasons is going to get us too far afield. But I have strong reasons to believe that 2025 is going to be a pivotal year in just the history of humanity in all fronts. I don't know if it's the arising of AGI or some extreme version of Neuralink, or aliens are landing on the White House's lawn. I have no idea, but or all of the above. But something fundamental is going to change. My personal favorite is we're going to jump to World 2.0. Literally, there's going to be some kind of a major upgrade, and everything is all of a sudden going to look. What part of the stuff that happens to me with the console is that in a particular state inside the console, so like if I get into another state inside of the molecule, everything starts vibrating in a different way, and I can see like everything becomes super pristine, like real, just like regular life, but like 2.0. Like I could, like if I walk outside, I see, the lights of the cars, they're like glistening in a different way. There's like a different emphasis to everything. Everything is like perfect. So
Yeah, way higher resolution almost, right?
well, higher resolution you get in general on the mushrooms, and you get it on the molecule. It's more than that. It's like another level. Like I can even feel that my body is vibrating in a different frequency. It's like you feel like you're just more. So my hope is that that's what's going to change. But I mean, I obviously have.
Did you ever see that movie Tomorrowland, where the guy puts on the ring and he like gets shifted into like another reality where it's all like high tech civilization stuff?
Who's the main actor?
I think it's George Clooney.
Huh. No, I don't think I've never seen that movie, All in Frequencies.
Yeah, you describing that kind of makes me think back to that film.
Interesting. Yeah, I might check it out. All in Frequencies.
We're almost in an instant. This one device or one thing is introduced to this human, and within a moment, everything gets upgraded to, like you said, civilization 2.0. That's an overlay of the current civilization he's in.
Interesting. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. But I do think that actually in that context, the whole process that some people are experiencing, like of the awakening and this feeling that something big is really, really shifting. I think it makes sense in this context, because if we are to be upgraded to this level, I do feel that it's going to be kind of like a world line split, where they have to make sure that whomever is allowed into this higher space can be trusted more. So like you don't have to be policed as much, like from the higher perspective. Not quite what people would describe 5D in the context of that conversation, Shay. So it's like kind of like like maybe in between space. It's just 3-dimensional, but just like more. I don't know. Maybe some people would be like uploaded to like 5D. I have no idea, but I do feel that that's kind of like where it is, where you have to be. You can't just let anybody in, because in that space you have more control over things. So you got to be careful with who you're letting in, essentially, and that's why getting your shit together, being more, a better person that doesn't have all these like weird kinks is.
Wow, yeah, and you saying that almost like when that civilizational like split takes place, almost like what Gallimore was speaking about on the podcast he was on last night, is when he creates that retreat down in the Caribbean. Maybe the people that aren't ready, we start having these retreats pop up everywhere, to where we kind of like clean these people's consciousnesses to where they are ready to go over with us.
Yeah, and these retreats are already happening, but like a lot of retreats are popping out everywhere, where people are doing all kinds of both molecules and techniques like breath work and things like that, to help people kind of like get into like a better place. We actually did one of these last year, and it was extremely successful. Hoping to do another one either this year or next year. And so she's saying we're splitting. What more have you learned about this console? Lesla code so far, nothing new. But like I said, somebody suggested yesterday that maybe, how are you, Dan? Would be a good idea to maybe do the thing in front of you and then tell you what I'm saying with the console. We'll see. I might do it tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure, so don't get all worked up, but I might. Sivan said that we are all being tested right now, because in 2025 to 2026, only those who are moral will go. Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me, Kirsten. My only thing there is that I don't think so. Like, I know what you mean, but I think that ultimately, like, really, really, like the level of morality that we're talking about, kind of like this, like, almost like a saint level. I don't think any of us possesses that. Like, people will still have their little, but it's just more moral, like of a certain level of moral that nobody has to worry about you, so to speak. frequencies. But we'll see. Hey, right? Next year. And also everything that's going on. I mean, it makes sense in that context. Politically, in the world, it's just kind of crazy what with everything that's happening. But it makes perfect sense. This what would happen right before something like that. And actually, this is one of these things that, for me personally, was one of the biggest both hurdles to clear and the biggest mindfucks, honestly. That because I came from such a secular backgrounds, which none of these things ever played a role in how I operate, what I care about. Not religious sentiments, not spiritual sentiments. I didn't care about any of these things. So now that I'm seeing that these things are actually part of what is required to help us get to like a good place, and they have a very concrete functional role, I'm every time I'm kind of blown away. I'm like, holy crap, but how do you communicate this? How do you communicate this to people who never had this experience, right? That's a big challenge. I'm only on board because I've had the experiences that I've had. But if I wouldn't, I would never be on board. I would never be like gravitating towards this. I guess maybe also whatever feelings are available about this stuff, I guess become more and more frequent for more people. What do you think about what people are saying about the Earth cleansing herself and cataclysms? Yeah, I don't know about that. I do think I'm more on board with actually with that, little theory that Terrence had. Or actually, he might have been quoting somebody else, so I don't want to misquote that person. But anyways, the theory is that actually Earth can see further into the future because it's a different kind of object, so its temporal perception is much wider, and so it would see into what we would call the future. It has a bit of better, like larger predictive ability, and it created a scenario in which creatures like us would evolve because we have technology and we can actually deflect and help whatever it is that is coming. So I'm actually of the opinion that we are the cure. We're not the disease. The earth made us to do something very important. Could our Ascension Earth 2.0 be like heaven on earth? Kind of. I can totally see that. I guess when I'm imagining heaven, I'm imagining literally like being with the divine, like with God. So I wouldn't call it heaven, right? But I know what you mean. So yes, I think something like that. That's what I'm struggling with. Family won't listen. Yep, that's a big one. I feel like Earth is shifting and evolving. We have to match its frequency and purge our shadows, integrate our shadows, and then everything else I'm on board with. You can't purge them because the shadows are part of you. So integrate them and understanding they're a healthy part of you, and finding a healthy place for them to reside and operate from. You can't purge them because then you're assuming that it's something that shouldn't be in you, and therefore you're assuming that it shouldn't be in the world, but it's just an integral part of the world. Therefore, it's an integral part of you. So instead of just pushing it away to the next situation, which is what we have been trying to do, you have to reintegrate them and take responsibility for them.
It's almost like the theme. Have you ever helped people, like maybe first timers, using the molecule, where you tell them, don't fight it, just let it happen. And the ones that try to like not embrace it, they don't have as good of a time as those that like completely give into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't push away. Exactly. That's exactly the same thing. It's like the more you push away, I mean, think about it. Like the more, or we won't make the ascension, and maybe that's when everything turns 2.0. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I admit that it's a flimsy prediction because it doesn't give you specifics. But yeah, I think you nailed it, the business. Well, think about it in terms of like anything that is suppressed always comes back with a vengeance, right? So everything we know that is happening with the Catholic Church, all the cultures that suppress their sexuality, like the caricature versions of like Germans and Japanese people, right? They're the most, like they're the most, they have the most cases of like the craziest perversions, right? Because you suppress this impulse that is very natural, but you look at it as like, no, that's dirty, that's shadow, so you push it away. So it comes back in all kinds of weird ways. But if you have like a healthy sexuality, right, then you interact with the world in a certain ways, and it's just folded beautifully into what you are, and it doesn't come as awkward or weird. It's just natural. And that's one example of how the shadow is folded either properly or improperly. And everything is like that, including the worst tendencies you can imagine, like, wanting to kill other people, things like that, like really, really evil thing, or what we would consider like dark things, right? But everything is like this. So, like, the Shaolin monks have a concept called compassionate killing. Essentially, if you the idea is that if you did everything you could, because they're Buddhists, right? So technically, Buddhists, they're very nonviolent, but Buddhist Zen allows for a lot of this stuff, which is kind of a little bit more, I guess you would call old school, right? But essentially, it's if you did everything you could possibly to avoid the conflict, you you de-escalated, you try to run away, you did everything, and now you're cornered, and now that person is still trying to kill you. Well, okay, now you're allowed to kill them, but you do it without hating them. You kill them with compassion, like truly, like actually kill them, but you don't hate them. You just understand that they're confused beyond the ability of you being able to influence them right now for the better. And if there's no communication, you're allowed to kill them, and it's called compassionate killing. And that's essentially, this is where one of these shadows, because in order to actually take another life, that's a serious event, right? So because karmically it's a serious event, and there's all kinds of things. So, but there's a moment there where the karma would actually go towards the negative if you at the same time also take pleasure in doing that, which is puts you in a bad position karmically, or if you do it with with a lot of hatred or anger. But if you do it from a neutral place, karma doesn't play a role, because karma only registers how you feel, right? So the action doesn't matter in that moment. And it's a very difficult thing to do in that way, but it illustrates that even in the worst of the worst of actions of human beings, which is literally taking another life, you can still find a way to fold the shadow in a way that it requires shadow to do that, but you can do it in a way that does not create karma. And that's a very difficult thing to achieve, obviously, something on that level. But everything is like that. And from a much simpler example from day to day, judgment is a very easy thing to jump to, right? We do it all the time. I catch myself do it all the time, and it's one of the things that I'm trying to teach myself to do less and less and less of, because it's very easy. Thank you so much for the rose, Lindsay. It's very easy to do. So, for example, it's very easy to fall prey to. For example, let's think of something specific. Okay, let's say you're a really good business person, okay, and then somebody walks in and they're trying to you have to do some kind of a business deal around something, whatever, purchase, like, I don't know, buy a property, I don't know, whatever it is, okay. And let's say, for the sake of argument, you are in this scenario a really good, like, you're really good in business, like you understand how to do it, you do it in an ethical way, you have like all the blows and whistles of like an accomplished business person, okay, or in real estate or whatever it is. And then somebody walks in and you can immediately smell the bullshit on them, right? They're weaselly, they do this thing, they kind of, and you're like, dude, like it's like, why, right? It's like there's we can do a healthy deal here. Why do that way, right? So imagine that scenario inside of you where there's so many different ways you can go with this. One, you can say like, not for me, thank you, walk away. The other thing you can do is watch them do their thing, and the whole time go like, oh man, like just judge them, like they're such a terrible person, right? And however, or maybe even try and like teach them a lesson, right? Because you understand the situation much better than they do, even though they don't realize it. Now you want to teach them a lesson, you want to do something that would screw them over, right? Whatever. So imagine what it would take of like a higher level thing of like presence, where you see maybe even a potential of a really good business person there, but they need to get over this nonsense that they're doing right now. So imagine what a person it would take to go, okay, I see what they're doing, I want to help them, and then actually look beyond the nonsense, beyond the craziness that they're doing right now, and find creative ways by slowly showing them, first of all, I see you fully, I see what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to gently help you. Let's come up here. There's a better way to do this. Let me teach you. And if they're smart enough, there's a good student, they'll pick up on that and go like, oh, okay, I think I have an opportunity here to actually become better. And they might take it. If they don't have enough awareness, they will just keep doing the thing, and whatever it is cannot happen because you need both sides to be engaged in it. But think about what a higher place it is to operate from without judging them, looking beyond the nonsense and looking at the person that can actually be the best version of themselves and then help them get there, right? So that's an example of, but the only person who can do that is somebody who integrated their own shadows. Because if you are the kind of person that always pushes away the shadow, no, we only deal with like good people. Okay, we don't deal with people like that. What you're saying there is that you refuse to acknowledge that you can also be that under certain circumstances. So you either don't realize it, or you're completely oblivious to it, or you don't want to look at it, which is what creates the shadow, what makes it into the shadow. What you push away in others is essentially a part of you that you're not willing to accept, because we all have a version of that, right? And only a person who truly, first of all, aware that they can also be a piece of work sometimes. So now they have compassion towards the other person because they know, look, they happen to be in this scenario. Whatever caused them to be like this, maybe they need the money, maybe they're struggling, maybe they have kids at home. They're like, well, I don't know what the situation is, but I know that I can also be like that sometimes. Let me be compassionate towards that. And then that can only come from a person who dealt with their own shadows and fully integrated them. Can never come from a person who pretends like their shit don't stink. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
yeah, and that essentially, and oh, by the way, it's so easy to see when you meet people that are like overly nice. It's very hard to trust them because like it's clearly they're asking themselves to be something that a human cannot be, which is, sometimes a rascal.
Yeah, I like the phrase, the love that you withhold is the pain that you carry.
Say it again. The life.
The love that you withhold is the pain that you carry.
Oh,
Like,
that
an example is you're walking down the sidewalk and a stranger, straight face, walking by you. Your inner self is like, hey, smile at this person. You have no reason to, but just do it. And that like person was on their way to like take their own life. That one smile you gave them changed their whole perspective. Like, oh, well, hold on, maybe there is hope for me still.
Oh, I love
So,
that.
like,
That is
any chance you have to help people progress and evolve, no matter how small, holding the door for somebody, giving a homeless person
yeah.
$5, like anything that can help those that are not, maybe not on the straight line path of, getting ready for the higher civilization, just, because we're only as strong as our weakest link in our civilization as humanity.
I agree. Yeah, man. That's bravo. I love all of that. And by the way, also do all of these things only when you truly mean them. Not like a fake smile because you feel obligated. Just like, hey. Like no, like a true, like really, really emote whatever that is.
Oh yeah, because if you expect anything in return, you don't get the blessing
Yep.
from it.
Yep, that's exactly right. Let's see. Let me take one comment on YouTube. I don't use the molecules, so I don't know. But on your experiences, could you ask the entities questions, or they were just showing you? Yeah, you can ask them questions. They will usually only answer things that you already know. So it's almost like there's a rule against telling you new things that you don't know about. It's genuine and agreed always without expectation. Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, there's a very deep message in a lot of uh, mystical traditions that talk about not mixing giving and receiving. So when you give, you want to give from your whole heart, which is exactly what you're saying, and don't think about what you're going to get in return. But the other side of the coin, which is less talked about, which is also important, when you're being gifted something, make sure that you allow the person who's gifting you to enjoy it fully. So what is meant by that is just receive it with deep gratitude and emote that and show that like, wow, this means a lot. So because that's what's going to make the giver enjoy the moment. But if you're too preoccupied with like, oh my god, what am I going to give them, you're actually ruining the moment. Like, don't worry what you're about. What you're giving them is the true reaction of appreciating what they gave you, and that part can actually be a lot more problematic and much harder because it's much easy. It's actually much easier to give than to actually receive with like full gratitude. It's the same thing with compliments, right? It's very difficult to kind of receive a compliment and just say thank you. There's always like this. You're trying to kind of like maybe escape from it. It's genuine. Okay, so this comment. But yeah, I love what you said. This is very beautiful. This
The person that asked, like, can you ask questions to the entities? Like, what I've noticed is that if you do have some kind of thought, it's like they give you the answer plus the answer to like a million other things that you didn't even know you were asking. You know?
Basically, yeah, it's everything that's derived from the implied in what you thought. So I always call it, they play hot cold game with your conjectures. So like you would start formulating a question in your mind about something. You're like, wait, you want to tell me that? And before you even get to the beginning of asking that question, they already know what you want. But because you formulated it, they nudge you towards yes or no, because it's very easy to go like yes, no, yes, 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 and then you go to the next one, and then think.
Let me know what you want to do, Darky.
The business. Can you mute it? Thank you, brother.
That's not me. I don't know what that is.
Oh no, that is strange. Okay, what? Wait, that's not on your side.
Sure you don't want.
There you go. Yeah, I know it is somehow on your side. I don't know how, but thank you. So yeah, it is on your side somehow.
TikTok. Hold on, let me mute real quick.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, so basically they play hot cold with your guesswork. So you kind of guess something, and then they tell you yes. Yeah, no, cool. I know it's not, but it is coming from somehow through your channel in some form. I don't know if somebody hacked it or something, but when you mute it, it goes away. And you tell me if that's your experience, and then basically they kind of steer you very quickly towards yes or no on 10 different channels about 10 different subjects, and that way both you don't get too overwhelmed with the knowledge because you already thought about it and you asked a question about it, so they just tell you yes or no to it. But if they want to tell you something that is much deeper or more complex, it's almost like they would hand you an object, so to speak, in your mind's eye, and you will just know that thing. It's just like it's an object that contains all the meaning around that thing. And yeah, well, I'm glad you're doing that, Ava. That's awesome. Because I think you also said that you work with people, right? Like in the spiritual domain. Yeah, definitely familiar with this. It's kind of great. Okay, brother. Yeah, so I think oh, interesting. So if we have any other particular questions about the content in the space, I would love to answer them. But if not, we'll start slowly bringing it to a close today. I think actually I think we did okay time today. I thought today I'm gonna do it shorter, but we actually went to like a regular time, give or take. So I think maybe a couple of final words I can say is that to that question that was asked before about how we talk about these things without losing our minds, I think it's a very important question. Absolutely, Shay. I think it's a very important question, and I think it's up to all of us, and it's just basically doing, what Ava is doing, which is remembering that somebody is usually going through something, because we all have our life story, and for the most part there's always some kind of a challenge. And if we can just, I know this message is slightly chewed up, obviously, but I think it's true. Like if we can just be a little bit kinder to each other, eventually a narrative will emerge that will allow, even for the newest and the craziest information, to be delivered culturally with and it won't be rough around the edges. It will go down smoothly. How about you, Rowan? And that's really, I think that's what we should definitely be striving for, because because all we have is the present moment with one another. And the more we're going to move into the cyberspace, which again is inevitable, even the people who yesterday we had this part of the conversation where we talked about the the potential dangers of like technology and all that stuff. It's clearly not something that is going away, and I personally maintain that it's part of the natural process of things. But it is true that when we're going to be moving more and more into that space, we will encounter more and more the need to be able to just hold center and be there for each other. Because if things are changing so quickly and everything is going to be coming at you so fast, and all you're going to need to be able to do is to learn fast and feel good in the moment. And we can create to some extent that in that healthy environment for ourselves inside of our own heads. But I think it's also important to express it in a way that is healthier. It also helps others feel better in your environment and also gives them an example of how to be. So not sure how the audio got hacked just then. First time I've ever had that happen. I mean, that is nuts. The code is I think you think the simulators opened that channel. That's really funny. That is kind of wild. But yeah, I mean, and I think on that note, I think we'll adjourn for today. I thank everybody. Business, you were awesome, bro. You're always welcome to come on the chat and just spend the time. It was amazing. And anybody else who feels that they have something to contribute, I'm always open to bring them on, even if they want to challenge the narrative. And yeah, guys, thank you so much. Biggie Deluxe, you're awesome. Cal, the business, you're the man. Thank you, everybody on YouTube. John and Stephanie and Wooden Bell. Thank you, guys. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Just one reminder, on the 24th, from the 24th, I'll be gone for 10 days till the 4th, because I'll be doing a Vipassana retreat. I always love it. I'll probably come back enlightened for sure. So I have a lot of things to say from Nirvana. No, but with all seriousness, it does add a lot to what can be said of value. So I'll be excited to see you guys after that. But I'll definitely see everybody tomorrow. Peace. Yeah, probably I will. That would be great. Bye, guys. Peace. See you, everybody on YouTube. Much love.